Bigfoot and the Bunny. I'm Chris Carr,
And I'm Kristen Johnson.
and we hope you are having a happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, everybody.
Happy
It
Tuesday.
is our last Tuesday before New Year's Eve, the last Tuesday before 2021. So we have a very special program for you guys tonight. We wanted to do holiday predictions about 2021.
Absolutely. I wanted to give a shout out first. I didn't know you were going to say that first. I wanted to give a shout out first to Bridget Honings, who I don't know if anybody can see it. I'm trying to, how's that look, Chris?
I can see it, yeah.
Yeah. She makes beautiful crystals and gems, and she puts beautiful workings around it with silver. Yes, it's very beautiful. And Chris got it from her for me for Christmas. And I just wanted to say thank you. It looks beautiful. Excuse me. And her site, if you'd like to go see, please go check it out. It's Mystical Creations by Bridget, and it's on Facebook. We also have another one. We had Becky on, Becky Vickers, a couple of weeks ago. Was it last week, Chris? 2 weeks ago. And she sent her book to us, The Goatman's Bridge, The Secret of the Goatman's Bridge.
That's correct.
Yes, it is.
And now we're obligated to complete the book and give it a good review, which I think we will do on our Dark Horse Paranormal podcast. The Secret of Goatman's Bridge. Thank you, Becky, for sending it out to us.
Yes, thank you, Becky, where I was going with that.
We appreciate that. We're chasing our tails a little bit tonight, so excuse us. I don't know about you, Chris, but I feel a little disoriented, like, oh my God, like I got thrown in the mix, even though we've had extra time to prepare. Yep. To prepare. Let me say that correctly. To prepare. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do as well right now.
But we have a wonderful guest tonight, and her name is Debra Lynne Katz. She is an internationally renowned speaker and founder and director of the International School of Clairvoyance, one of the first online schools in the world to offer interactive small group clairvoyant training in a teleseminar and webinar formats. Debra is the author of You Are Psychic, which, by the way, Debra, I gave my daughter this year for Christmas as part of her Christmas presents. Extraordinary Psychic, and Freeing the Genie Within.
She has been a professional clairvoyant healer, medium for the past 25 years, and is a parapsychologist and research subject. She has performed thousands of clairvoyant readings to help people understand more about themselves, their lives, and relationships. She is also an accomplished remote viewer, having assisted with financial forecasting, business consulting, finding lost objects, and occasionally, crime solving, and even treasure hunting.
She is currently a PhD student in psychology at the University of West Georgia and holds a master's degree in social work and a BA in psychology. She's a former federal U.S. probation officer, legal advocate for domestic violence crime victims, and director of day programs for adults with developmental disabilities, which I feel like I have because I cannot talk tonight. And I am so sorry, but welcome, Debra. Welcome back.
Deborah. So someone's going to have to get rid of that way too long introduction and just give you the concise one. I think
we need a short form there, I think. I don't know. It's too many words, man.
Way too many words.
It's actually an excellent bio, and I'm sorry we kind of messed that up a little bit.
Oh no, I love hearing your accents. Kristen, where are you from originally?
I am from Massachusetts, which I still reside in.
Yes, my husband's from Long Island, so I detected somewhat of a similar accent.
The accent.
I love
the Northeastern accent.
I can't help
We have it. It's like a little bit of Boston. We have the Boston thing, but we're south of Boston, and Kristen and I, live close together. I'm in Rhode Island, which when you're in Rhode Island, you see it like Wood Island, which is kind of like a little bit like Brooklyn. It kind of meets that Boston, like, don't park your car over there, meets the kind of Brooklyn, like, oh, with, yeah, that kind of accent. It's a little hybrid.
There you go, hybrid.
Yeah, I love accents. I don't know if you guys tell where I'm from originally. I don't know if I still sound like it at all.
You have a little bit of a southern.
No, actually from Chicago.
Oh, is that it? That's where wow. It's
you
don't sound like it at all.
Yeah, it's been about 20, 25 years since I've lived there, so I think I've gotten rid of it for the most part. But yeah, I'm always amazed when I hear people from Illinois and just how strong of an accent they have, because you don't really notice it when you're living there.
Oh, that is correct. Yes. I wish I could get rid of mine, but I try, but it doesn't work.
No, it's really cute. It's adorable.
God, thank you.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate it. I wanted to ask you, I know you were on our show about 8 months ago, and we were talking about coronavirus, and you were spot on with a lot of your predictions about that, especially the way that it hangs in the air and that sort of thing, which they're still figuring out, but turned out to be completely true. I quipped, and I never used that word quip, but I commented that the paranormal is sort of the bastard child of parapsychology. And I said that because I have a twisted sense of humor, for one, but for two, it is kind of true, and it acts as sort of a gateway into these sort of things. For our audience who did not see that particular episode, how did you find yourself immersed in parapsychology growing up, and what drove you to going in that direction of putting the scientific method to the experiences you were having?
Well, let's see. I would say first I had experiences as a child with my twin sister, who sounds like you guys have met lately. So we'll have to talk about the remote viewing class that you're in with her. But so we had spontaneous experiences as kids, and then we meditated and we tried to learn whatever we could about how to get control of our abilities. But it wasn't really until we were in our late 20s or so that started to realize that you could take classes and you could really learn how to develop this. And so that's how I would characterize like the next maybe 15 years or so of my life was really spent practicing, learning any techniques I could find. And I went from clairvoyant reading to remote viewing and just nonstop practice, basically. And then I got involved I was invited to a training by a group of researchers who wanted to know if remote viewers could use their psychic abilities to tune into viruses, plant viruses at the time. And so we took a class together and then did some different just informal experiments, and they were pretty much satisfied. I didn't know that the targets were viruses at the time, but they were quite happy with my sessions. And then from there, we just started to do some different projects. And then we won a research award, the Warcallier Research Award, with the International Remote Viewing Association, which I'm now a board member on. I'm on their board of directors, and also run a research unit that we recently started called the IRVA IRU Research Unit. And anyone who's interested in remote viewing actually can join IRVA and also join our research unit. We have monthly creative meetings via Zoom, and it's really fun. You get to learn about research and share ideas in any stage of their creation. But that's a little plug for that. But so as I mentioned this award because while it might sound like, oh, it's cool, you won an award, it really became a ball and chain around my soul, because this was my first time I had ever been involved in formal research, and we had been given a grant, which was $3,000. Actually, no, that one was $2,000. But it seemed because we won the grant, we had to complete our research, and we had 40 remote viewers tune into viruses, and then our plan was to have a number of virologists rate their sessions and hopefully learn something from their sessions so that they could then make use of what the remote viewers had found in their own research to develop answers to questions such as what makes viruses replicate. So we wanted to show that remote viewing and psychic work could be used to help advance science. But the whole project was really super challenging, and I was new to research, and we lost one of our main researchers early on. And so for a year, the project took like 4 years to complete. And I learned how much I didn't know about formal research. And at that point, other projects started coming in and just getting involved in them. I was very involved in what you might be a little familiar with, associative remote viewing, which is using remote viewing to make stock market predictions and sports betting and all sorts of future predictions about the lotto, things like that. And so I started doing research in that, just working with people informally, and then it got to be more formal. And then to make a long story short, I realized there was still so much I didn't know, and I really needed to get my research skills up. So I applied for a PhD program at University of West Georgia and ended up getting a scholarship. So pretty much a free ride to that program. And so now I am being tortured one last time this week as I'm finishing up my dissertation, and then hopefully I never have to think about this ever again. And I'm kind of almost hoping I can get out of research, the formal research end, because what I would love to do is go and do more like paranormal investigations, go out to locations or just go out in the field and do fun things rather than sitting behind my computer and typing or organizing data and stuff like that. So I don't know if that answers your question.
We understand that.
Yeah.
Where do you see, and I don't want to fly into this, but with remote viewing, you do like that, as you know, like we were talking about, we met your sister, and you kind of just answered my question, whether you'd rather be out, but into the fields and everything. But do you like it now, still knowing more, and after your research and everything, knowing more, and how that our brain is, or our subconscious is trained to do this?
Well, for certain projects, it's really helpful to isolate variables to understand what's going right and what's going wrong. Like that's a big question, especially in the work on associative remote viewing, where how come you could take a group of remote viewers and sometimes have a very accurate prediction that could also result in a good amount of money, and at other times it seems like you're doing the same thing, but the prediction fails. For example, I was recently involved in a conference for the Applied Precognition Project, which does associative remote viewing for these different sports betting and financial purposes. And one of the conferences are really fun. We have them a couple times a year. And one of the predictions was for the presidential elections. And so we had 21 viewers, and 17 of them, their prediction was for Trump to be the winner. Now, associative remote viewing is a little different than what I'd call straight remote viewing. So it wasn't that we just had psychics, it wasn't like we told psychics, tune in and see who's going to win. Associative remote viewing involves taking something like a photograph, pairing it with a potential outcome, and then telling the viewers that they're going to be shown the correct photo attached to the winner after the election has happened. So in this case, they're not viewing the presidents or the candidates, but they're viewing the photo attached to the winning candidate. So essentially, it's like being told you're going to be shown a photo, say either after the election, or in this case, it's after the inauguration. So all these remote viewers are told, all you have to do is describe a photograph, which is, pretty simple for experienced viewers. So you just have to do a good job describing this photograph. And what will drive which photo they're shown is the winner, because it's been associated with one or the other. So this process should work. And a lot of times it does. But in this case, the photo that was almost unanimously described is the one that's attached to Trump. And so 17 had the wrong prediction and 4 had the correct prediction, or their transcripts pointed to the correct one. So why did we have 17 wrong predictions? That is what more kind of structured formal research can not always, but theoretically, if you do things very diligently and carefully, then really what formal research is doing things in a structured way. You have it planned out. You keep track of everything. You don't change from one trial to the next. You just have consistency in what you do. And it makes it a little easier to understand then what may have gone wrong or what went right. And we're kind of in the middle of this. We haven't had the inauguration yet to understand why did 17 people apparently, it would be pretty surprising if Biden is not inaugurated after he's been confirmed from every state. So assuming that they're wrong, but maybe not. Maybe this is telling us something, and we'll find out in a few weeks.
And that's where the research it becomes really interesting, because you have to understand that nobody is 100% correct at all times, right? So you look at this thing with the scientific method, where you have groups of people and you can pull data where you see an inclination one way or another, whether it's politics or sports teams, or where the stock market is going, or what coronavirus might do, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's true whether your predictions are intuitively inspired or through logic. And I was reading about Nate Silvers, who is very well known as someone who has successfully predicted some dozens of presidential elections, not through his psychic abilities, but through statistical modeling. And he, at least for the 2016 presidential election, was off, just like so many people were off for the 2016 election. And so it's really interesting just to compare logical predictions versus intuitive. And
do you think we're in for any surprises on January 6th when Congress counts the electoral votes?
I do not. I can't say that I've intuitively looked at that question. So if I answered, it would be by my logic. And logically, I think we'll be okay. But haven't quite checked that one. But again, is there a reason all these viewers got 17 people got it wrong? We'll have to see.
Maybe it's the lack of a concession. I don't know. That's interesting.
I was thinking that as well. Yeah. It's a good thought.
I found you a couple years ago, actually, on a show by Jeffrey Mishlove called Thinking Aloud, or New Thinking Aloud, depending how you want to say it. Who's the author of PK Man, which PK being psychokinesis, and I'll give him a plug. And
Yeah.
that's the book there, which I love. It's a really good book. It's a story of Ted Owens, and Ted Owens could predict or manifest the appearance of UFOs, change the weather, the outcome of sporting events, and apparently could influence them.
UFOs?
This was through the communication of what he called space intelligences. Do you think there is any tie-in between aliens or space intelligences and UFOs and psychic phenomena?
Well, I actually had an experience with that book, and I don't know, we didn't talk about this last time, did we?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. So I had talked to Jeffrey. I'm trying to remember back how this came about. He spoke at a small conference I was at about the PK Man, and he had mentioned that he and his wife and some others years ago had attended some lectures that Ted Owens gave. Basically, they organized like a workshop in their house, and he came and he talked, and the it was a whole workshop designed to help people get in touch with these space intelligences. So he said that he had these recordings, but he wouldn't make them like available to the public because he was worried about the repercussions of it, that connecting people up with these, because if you read the book, it wasn't like these were loving beings, that these were highly destructive intelligences that had their own agendas and were basically working through, or with Ted. He would get angry and he'd be like, hey, let's get revenge over here, and they seemed happy to comply. And he described very bizarre things that would happen in his house and all kinds of PK events. So anyway, this wasn't something that was necessarily good for people to do, but I asked him if he would send me the tapes, and he did. And so I was a little anxious because typically I would just try to stay away from this kind of thing, but I was really curious and just going through a phase where I was a little bit more reckless. So I started to listen to the tapes, and Ted would take people through. He had studied a bit of hypnosis, so he would just start to take the students into just a bit of a deeper state. And every time, like 5 minutes into it, I would fall asleep, like completely fall asleep. And so I didn't know what he was saying, like what his instruction was after that. But every night I would listen to it, maybe for like 3 weeks. It was so frustrating. I would just listen to the same one over again, but I never was conscious. So I started to, but I did notice, like, I would kind of wake up and I would have these flashes of like just kind of creepy looking things, like as if there were eyes like just staring at me, kind of like dog faces, and just these creepy kind of characters. And I was sure it was connected in some way, but they didn't look alien to me. Anyway, I started getting really bad headaches, and I was just feeling so exhausted. And I went to, I had a session with a clairvoyant who I know is a really excellent reader, and I didn't tell him anything, and I didn't even connect how I was feeling up with these tapes. But the very first thing out of his mouth is, I'm seeing something completely like drilling into your energy centers above your head. And he said, I don't even know how to tell you this. I don't want to scare you, but it looks like this alien being, and it looks like this giant praying mantis. And it's saying that if that you somehow have asked it to help you with your powers, your PK powers, and if it's going to be successful, it's almost like it's going to have to transform your brain. Now, if you remember in the book, the creatures the aliens he's talking about do look like praying mantises. And he says that they actually did transform his brain. So when I heard that, that was enough. I don't need a lobotomy or whatever.
Nope, we're good.
And
that is so so significant. You had a similar experience.
Yeah, and he just did some energy healing right there, and I was totally fine. It cleared up. I wasn't tired after that. I never listened to the tapes again. It's just not worth it.
No, definitely not.
That's amazing. No, I was unaware of that. We didn't speak of that last time.
No.
Yeah, but that
I hadn't read the book at that point.
Yeah, it is a really interesting book, and it sounds so far-fetched that one guy might really have controlled the weather, but there were so many, here's the thing, you don't know even so much, was it always that he was controlling the weather, or was he psychically being told where the weather patterns were going to be?
What it would do, right?
Right.
And that
That's
was
a big
the
question.
battle in parapsychology is like, are you actually doing psychokinesis, or are you just doing telepathy, or clairvoyance, and determining there's going to be a hurricane that hits Florida, for example, and from the book, right? Or did he know that clairvoyantly, or did he manifest it?
Right.
Yes, exactly. And it can be really confusing because you could think that I've played around with trying to impact the physical world around me. And when something then happens, is it that I made it happen, or I just even got the idea subconsciously because it was going to happen, and then just kind of consciously thought of doing it? It's a real tough one.
Mm-hmm.
That actually brings up a good point. Not to continue, I want to give Kristen Leo to let her ask some questions here. But when you say the subconscious, what role do you think that plays in remote viewing and psychokinesis and psychic phenomena?
Oh, so much. So much is operating on that level. And then sometimes it rises up enough so we become aware of it. But so much is just happening where it expresses itself through the body. So it's how the body moves, and not even the brain not even knowing why the body's moving in a certain way towards something, or away from something, or even how it's responding emotionally. And you're talking about formal research before, and some of the most impressive studies and impactful studies I've read about have been, I would say, Dean Radin's studies in, what is it called? Perioception, presentiment experiments, where two people are in separate rooms, and one person has a stimulus applied to them. The stimulus could be having their hand stuck in a bucket of ice water, or they're being shown some kind of violent or sexually graphic image, and they're the receiver in the other room. The idea is that they're going to pick up, supposedly it's being tested to see if they'll pick up what's happening to the person receiving the stimulus. And what they found is it happens on a subconscious level. So the receiver may not be aware of what's going on with their friend or loved one in the other room, but they're hooked up to heart monitors, skin response tests, brain wave sensing to EEG technology, and their bodies are registering what's happening. And of course, researchers really like that because then they don't have to rely on the observations of the receiver. They could just look at the equipment. They could record exactly when it happens. And they know these are called precognitive or presentient experiments because they actually pick up that the sender receives the signals even a few seconds before the person in the other room has their hand put in the ice water or sees the video. So this registers in advance. It registers on a physical level, and a lot of times they're not aware of it. However, occasionally they may be aware of it. A lot of times they don't even ask them if they are, but so I think this is how our psychic abilities are operating all the time. Just we're not aware of it. Instead, we get upset about something, but we don't even know why we're upset. We just have this reaction, and that's the body reacting.
Oh, I was going to ask you the same question about the subconscious and how you think that it plays a role and everything, but that was an excellent answer. I can see that happening with somebody else in another room.
Well, and even like, I wrote to a co-researcher of mine yesterday, and I hadn't talked to him in about a month or so. And I just wrote and said, I'm just checking in to let you know I'll be free in a week or two to get back together. And he wrote back, wow, you were so psychic because I was just composing an email to you. So why in the whole month I hadn't thought of talking to him. And at that moment, did I have that idea too? So in the moment, I wasn't conscious of why I was doing it. I just felt an urge. And I think what's helpful is that I'd say for myself, the time that it takes me to go from having an idea to an action is like a split second. Like I'm not someone who thinks about what I'm going to do for too long before I do it. I just do it. And I think that that is helpful when it comes to like spontaneous occurrences of psi, because it can come through. Whereas I think it still is coming through to people who say take longer with their decision making, but then it gets suppressed because they think of, oh, I should call this person, but by the time they actually follow through on it, the time is over, and you never know that exact moment when they thought of it, it was when that person was thinking of them.
The left brain kind of overrides it, right?
Yeah.
The logic and that kind of thing overrides the subconscious.
Yeah. And I was talking to a guy who has been studying attention deficit disorder, and he has a theory that people who have been diagnosed with it or ADHD may have some pretty strong psychic abilities. And part of what's happening is they are more responsive to their just intuitive impulses, or conversely, they're more likely to just, respond to them. So it may be they're more psychic, or they're just responding more quickly to all the psychic signals around.
I'm going to give you the question for the night. I know a lot of people are wondering as well. Where do you see the coronavirus in the future? In 2021, we'll go with.
All right. Well, when I've tuned into it recently, I had a little bit of, and when we were on our little break, but right before we got together, as we were working out some technological difficulties, I went back and refreshed myself. So sometimes what happens is I'll audio or videotape myself doing a prediction, but I talk really slow while I'm doing it, and I'm going into a deeper trance, so I don't remember what it is that I said, so I have to re-listen to it. So I'm glad that I listened to it a little bit right before the show. So but I didn't record the date. So this was maybe a few weeks ago when I tuned in. And so I had a sense that there is going to be delays with the vaccine, with its widespread distribution. And the reason is that the infrastructure is not there with the somehow this is going to take a lot more infrastructure to pull off than people realize at the moment. So it may be that the vaccines are they're, I don't know if it's the delivery of them.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask, maybe logistics wise.
Logistics, and also like once they get to a place, it's not, there's going to be almost like the receiving of them. It's not going to be set up in a way that's conducive to getting it out to a lot of people all at once. And that's going to become blatantly clear within a couple months. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is related to something else that I have been seeing, which has to do with where people, I believe there's going to be some intensive violence. Now, I don't know how widespread this is, if it's just going to be isolated to one city, or if it's going to be more widespread. And that's an important question that I need to spend more time looking into. But what I was getting was that there were going to be people who were already disenfranchised, feeling that they were not getting access to the vaccine because of their lower economic status, and that this was going to create, that there was already so much anger brewing, but that this was going to be a tipping point. There's already groups of people, and I was just going to look at my notes here to see if I can find this really fast, because as I kind of typed these out when I was listening back to the recording. And okay, I'll say I saw someone, and he looked like the image in the Scream, that painting of the image of the Scream. And it was like he was going crazy and yelling out, and then he broke into sobs. And then I heard a rally. It was like a rally for a battle cry. And people were joining together in solidarity. That there's something about that word, solidarity, that is a clue. And I had to even kind of look it up to really understand the historical meaning of that word. But that word is going to become relevant. And I wrote, just typing out my transcripts from my session, it feels like there's something dangerous here. It's a war cry, a cry for war. This is a battle cry that comes from the depths of the human being, as if there is one heart connected to another. The hearts are people standing behind one heart after another after another. And when one heart cries out, they all cry out. This is a group of people. It did not seem like they were Caucasian. They looked more possibly Hispanic descent. I believe that some may be from South America. It is possible that some of the people involved could be gang members, or people that you would they kind of looked like they were tattooed. And it seemed like there was this sense of revolutionaries, and that they were already, they're already ahead of the game. There's a lot of guns. There would be, it would be like gang members that already have control of the street, but now they want bigger control over a bigger area. And when this anger happens, where people are really thinking that they're not getting the vaccine, that's when all hell breaks loose.
The violence breaks out. Okay.
And it seemed as if there were multiple gangs and factions. I saw an image of a cube with different facets joining together. So people from kind of different groups coming together. And what was a little disturbing was what we saw in the months ago with the rioting and the protests. That was almost like a dress rehearsal for what we're going to really see. So that was disturbing for sure. Now, I don't know if it really is the case that people will be denied the vaccine based on socioeconomic status. Of course, you can, it would be impossible to think that there wouldn't be some of that because, let's face it, it takes resources to sometimes even, know to where to go or be able to even, drive your car to be able to go over and get access. So there's so many economic factors involved, even if no one's intentionally, trying to keep something from you. But so, yeah, it didn't feel like the denial of the vaccine was, or, I felt like eventually people would have more access to it, but it's just going to take a lot longer and things are just going to be seeming more and more chaotic. And this is very different than I logically thought because I was just hoping that once Biden came into office, that everything was just, going to work itself out. So that might have been naive, but that, at least for myself, that's where my mind was before I started to tune in intuitively.
And that's interesting. And we're all looking at that almost like as an insular view, like we're, from the USA standpoint. But what does somebody in, Nicaragua do to get the virus? Or South Africa, where it's raging right now, and that's infecting the UK with a more evolved virus, because the virus, the more we vaccinate, the more it's going to mutate and evolve and become even more transmissible, as we're seeing, or perhaps change its target, like the previous virus of 1918 did, where it changed its target and it wants to stay alive. It almost seems to have a consciousness.
Right.
Yeah, for months I've been getting that there would be a second strain. I kept getting the message that there were two of them, like two viruses that were linked but not exactly the same. So I wasn't surprised when the news came out of the UK about that. What I saw too was not only on an external level of delivering the vaccine, that was going to be an issue, but something within the vaccine itself, the makeup of the vaccine, the delivery system related to the RNA, which I do not understand this intellectually, unfortunately, but there's something about whatever is supposed to be delivered through within the blood system, where whatever is supposed to arrive in the right place to do its job. Some at least, I don't know if this would be with all the vaccines or with a portion of them. It's almost like it's not reaching where it needs to reach. So it's the substance is there, but the delivery mechanism within it is not getting to the right spot. Now, I think this will eventually be worked out. As I'm talking, it makes me kind of feel like maybe it's just not like strong enough, like a strong enough dose to reach where it needs to reach. And they may not, even understand that yet. Maybe it has, this is me just kind of guessing right now, but it may be certain body types. It might, be kind of more resistant, or it might take more of the dose to reach the certain areas. There's something not quite right about that, and there's going to need to be some adjustments. And if that's the case, they could end up, going through a lot to get some of the vaccine delivered and then realize that, at least that batch isn't really going to be doing what it needs to do. So, this sounds kind of dismal, but I think it's just that people have to anticipate. People should not be, and this is kind of crazy coming from me as an eternal optimist, but I don't think that you can be optimistic in a situation like this. Like, I think we have to plan for the worst and then be pleasantly surprised. And my concern is I'm not hearing people planning for the worst. It's just like, oh, we're going to get this out here. Everything's going to be fine. So I think we should almost be acting as if we don't have a vaccine yet, and then be pleasantly surprised when, we get caught up to it. I think that would be the prudent thing to do.
Absolutely.
It seems like good advice. Absolutely.
Very much so. I know you had said that it sounds dismal and you don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but we are really glad that you are telling us about this. Thank you. Because people need to be aware, like you're saying, that it's not going to be right away. It's going to take time.
It's not going to get to everybody, and you can see how the public reacts, right? The public has had so many reactions. 2020 has been such a year of chaos.
And there's a lot of anti-vaxxers as well, so that's not going to help anything or anybody. So
and something like 1 in 5 people don't want to take the vaccine,
right?
Which of course is going to keep it struggling, and evolving and mutating,
right?
Yeah, it's pretty messy at the moment. And that being said, again, this is just from my logic, but I was really trying to find the peer-reviewed articles, that talk about the vaccine. And I don't know, when I checked about 2 weeks ago, I wasn't finding them. It seemed like even as little as 2 weeks ago, what was out was only what the pharmaceutical companies were putting out. I wasn't finding independent reports that were showing things in detail in the way that, you would expect from just any study. A lot of studies, you're not really supposed to even talk about the results until you've had independent researchers looking everything over and making sure it's all been done diligently. And from what I found was that really it was like having to go off of the press releases. So I found that a little disturbing. And also, one thing I was surprised about with both the Pfizer vaccine and the what is the other?
Moderna, I think it is.
So they vaccinated, they had, for the Pfizer study, they started off, now things have changed rapidly, but as of a couple weeks ago, with what the data showed, was that they had 40,000 people in their study. So half received the vaccine and half were in the placebo group. Mm-hmm. And then they sent them home. They did not expose them to the virus. So this isn't the kind of vaccine that puts the virus in you. So what they're hoping is that that they'll be representative of the general population. So just like some people will get it, some won't, the same thing with the people in their experimental group, which means the 20,000 people that did get the virus or get the vaccine, again, they're just left out there to possibly catch it, but we don't know how many of those people have been exposed. So when you hear that the vaccine is 95% effective, that to me, that is a different picture. then, say you exposed everyone, like put them in a room filled with the virus, and then could
Right. That's a completely different picture than what
yeah.
I expected.
Me
That's
too.
news to me.
Right.
And Kristen, like I thought these people were given the virus, and they were measured as far as how they tolerated it, whether they were actually infected or whether their bodies fought it off, like you might the flu with a flu vaccine. That
Right.
sounds completely different. That sounds like they were just put in a population and, well, let's see how many get it.
Yeah. And then, they're tracking them. If they feel sick, they have to call in. If they, they check in with them regularly to see how they're doing. So, at least they could say, well, these people aren't having deadly side effects or anything like that. So in that respect, they could say, okay, well, these people largely have been okay with the vaccine. But yeah, we don't know how many in the treatment group have been exposed to the virus. I mean, it is still where the 95% effectiveness comes in, is where you compare how many people in the control group got it versus how many people in the experimental group. And it was something like, I think, like, don't quote me on this, but maybe like 195 people got it in the control group, but then 10 people got it in the experimental group. So that's a lot more that did get it, who didn't have the vaccination. But still, and no one's talking about that. So I've been trying to discuss this with other people, but nobody's really read the studies themselves. So this is a big concern of
It's a huge
Absolutely.
concern.
Yeah.
And
Is
it
that
almost sounds rushed in a way to package it and have something available, which is scary, which is to say we aren't really there yet. I know there's other vaccines. I work with a good deal of people who live in India, and one of the vaccines that they're getting is the Sputnik, which is actually out of Russia, who has their own vaccine, and they've named it Sputnik.
Sputnik V.
Sputnik V or Sputnik 5,
Right.
which we've gotten kind of a kick out of. Um, right,
Yeah.
like the satellite, and some others that are kind of homegrown. There's a plethora of vaccines out there that are being developed, but they're all kind of in developmental stages, if you will.
Yeah, and I mean, personally, I'm pro vaccines. As I just want to, all I'm asking for is that the information be, put out there and made really clear, and that we could really, understand
Absolutely.
understand what's going on
What
with
that
that.
means and what
Right,
everything
we
is
are
going on.
too.
Yes.
We're pro-vaccine. We're not anti-vaxxers in any way, shape, or form, but that is some interesting insight that you lent that we aren't seeing through most of the commercial media out there as far as how the numbers came about.
And now things, may be different now. I mean, they do say in the US there have been like over 1 million people vaccinated. I have a friend I just talked to. He is recovering from coronavirus, and he was fortunate enough to be friends with a doctor, or his friend is friends with a doctor, and they got him into a trial. I don't know which one he's taking, but they gave him something. It wasn't a vaccine, but it was, shoot, and now I'm forgetting what it was, but he said he felt better within 24 hours. And so it's one of the drugs that is supposed to help to neutralize.
Like the Regeneron.
Yeah,
They give you
it wasn't that. I asked him if it was that, and he said it wasn't that one, but whatever. Yeah, it was something that he felt better immediately.
That's awesome. I'm glad he's doing okay.
So it is encouraging that there, are some things to
that
help
one works.
people, but
Right.
yeah.
Is there anything else that you have also, like, I don't want to ask like a specific question that you haven't, like the economy and.
In terms of future predictions, well, I have a client who is a trader, a stock market trader, and so we get together a couple times a year, and then he just asks questions, and sometimes they're in relation to his own trading, and then sometimes it's just about the markets in general. So one of the things that I came across, I had this image of a chessboard, and I asked the board to show me like some moves on it that would symbolize what is going to happen financially coming up here in the next say 6 months or so. And I was expecting to see just the pieces move, and then instead I saw the whole board crumble, like if you took a chessboard and broke it apart, the board itself, which was rather alarming.
Oh boy.
Wow.
So when I asked what did that mean, I really did get a collapse of the financial system. Now, it is possible that I am just being overly dramatic, and I hope that's the case. But yeah, what I got was everything was going to be fine through Christmas and through the holidays. So here we are now, because this was maybe a month ago or so. But then things were going to go south really, really quickly. There'd still be some ups and downs, but there was something that was making it so people were not easily getting access to their money, and they were, or to some checks, and they were confused as to why they weren't getting access to their money. Now, I don't know, does this mean access to all money, or does this mean access to maybe like the checks the government's supposed to be sending? But there was some difficulty around that, and I definitely felt like this was showing quite a big collapse. So I anticipate, if this is going to happen, I think it'll happen before March, maybe even before the first week of February or so. I was just going to look at my notes here if I could think of anything else.
I was going to ask you about climate change, but this seems far more important at the moment, right?
Yeah, I didn't, well, I don't think I got too much about climate change, but what I did see, and I probably shouldn't even talk about this because I don't have enough information about it yet, but it was like something was off in the distance, and whatever I got the word pestilence. I don't know what that was referring to, if it was more just, more of the virus or something else. But one of the things, and I hate being vague, and I feel like I am being vague here, but one thing I got was that life as we knew it is over in the way that we knew it. And now this was surprising to me, because logically I think, okay, we're going to have a new president. I do really think that the virus will be, eventually going away. So why wouldn't we go back to how things were before? With the exception that I think more activities will be online. And in some ways that I love that we can meet like we are here, and, doing different classes online we didn't do before, and parties online. I think those are pretty cool. So I kind of logically thought we'd go forward with that, but life would largely return to how it was before. But I got a very clear message that we're not going to go back to life, how life is before, but it's not just because of the virus, that something else is going to be happening. And it's the something else that happens that's going to make it so life is changed forever. And so what is that?
I'm going with Elon Musk and how Chris and I always goof on this, but it's not really a goof, of how robots are going to have it's going to be like the Terminator, basically, because they're really up there with the AI and right.
Right, AI is definitely a factor.
Subconscious, they're giving it, a conscious. And
some people also said that the virus itself may become an annual thing. It may just continue to evolve and never really be erased and come back like the flu, like we have the flu vaccine annually. There may be some version of COVID that comes back. What are your feelings as far as the virus itself being a weaponized virus? We've always felt that it was a weapon, that this was man-made, and I think you did say that as well on our last show, that it was man-made. I mean, by who? It can be anybody, and I'd like to just state just the fact that we call it, it came from China, and we say all these things about it as a country. It does not necessarily mean it's fact.
It could have came from Russia.
We wonder where it came from, or
it could have came from us.
I mean, China says it came from us.
Yeah. We planted it.
It's an open playing field out there, really. Do you have any feelings about that?
Well, when last January, when we first started hearing about it, I had two impressions. One, when I first tuned in, I was really surprised because this was right at the start, and I saw a refrigerator, and I saw like a container in the refrigerator. So, that's not that descriptive, except enough to show, okay, someone had this initially in a refrigerator. It wasn't just in animals. But then I asked myself to have a dream more about this source. And as soon as I did, I fell asleep, and I was on a train, and the train was passing by these different animals. So that made me think that it is a virus that comes from animals, but that it was also, humans had a hold of it to put it
prepared, maybe in some way, right?
Yeah. And, I try to, when I get images, sometimes they come in with knowings and sometimes not. And then it's a matter of, taking the time to probe them more and get more details. So I don't want to say anything that, I could do my logical speculation just like anybody else, but I do believe that they were in the hands of humans. It was in the hands of humans at some point. And and for me, whether it was China or anywhere else, I mean, it sounds like it, was in China, but that's not the point to blame anyone, but definitely we want to understand, where do these things come from, and take all the precautions we can to not have more of these things.
Right.
But I'm really interested in the artificial intelligence idea there. Can you say more
been thinking about that for a while. We have someone in the comments. Their name is, I think it's Reven, and they said, I wonder if Deborah can use RV remote viewing to see the specific energetic makeup of the virus, see its dynamics. Then they said, I wonder if there is also a magical component to it.
Well, when this first started, I did tune into the physical structure of the virus, and I did take some notes on that. And I don't know if I will be able to pull that up while we're talking here, because what I've been doing is whenever I tune in, I add it to a document. But I did do some sketches at the start of this. So yes, and I am, again, I've done quite a bit of research now with remote viewing different kinds of viruses like tomato viruses, and with several other viewers, and a number of them with the tomato viruses did a really, and another kind of virus called a bacteriophage. Really, some viewers did incredibly detailed jobs of describing the structures and sketching them. And their sketches look very, very similar to artist renditions of these items or organisms. So, yeah, the nice thing about remote viewing is that, there's certain things that even on a physical level, like a bacteriophage, which is a virus that feeds off of bacteria, can only be seen under an electron microscope. So that's not something that a person could just see with their physical eyes. So it's pretty cool that clairvoyants or remote viewers could get aspects of something that, people just can't see with their eyes.
Absolutely. And that's a very high-tech microscope as well.
Yeah.
As well.
The difficulty is that whenever you're dealing with anything related to your psychic abilities, people want to know, like they want to know, how correct are you? And the challenge is, if you're using psi to learn about something that's not already known, but then people are evaluating if you're correct or not, then they can only evaluate you against what they know. So it's this paradox where, it almost takes more trusting what the person is saying, which is hard to do because, again, we know sometimes psychics aren't all, or remote viewers, they're not always right. And so, but it takes like enough trusting, and then someone that's already an expert in the field where the information is needed to be able to work with it. So I could say something, or another remote viewer could say something about a virus, and it's not going to go anywhere unless, one, we have an expert in virology and immunology. That was one message I got, that it wasn't even so much virology, but immunology that was going to be important here with getting a vaccine. And so it takes an expert in that, but also someone who would believe enough in the ability of a psychic to give them some information and then to go act on that, at least not out of pure faith, but maybe to inform some experiments, or, take some steps that then they could have new realizations.
And sure. And then the idea of statistical analysis comes into play too when you deal with groups, right? So you're looking at it and people get aspects of things. And as Kristen and I have come to discover through taking remote viewing classes, we get aspects of the target. We don't necessarily get the target spot on, and that's just us being newbies at it, for lack of a better word. And I would like to give a plug out there to Michelle. If anybody's interested in those remote viewing classes, you can find them at butterflyeffectcenter.com. We highly recommend them. We've learned a lot, and we're kind of humbled by the knowledge we've gained from that, how the subconscious seems to be able to link to what would seemingly be a random target and get at least some aspect of it.
Yeah, and I know Michelle well. We went to high school together, so we've known each other for many, many years. And you guys said that you're in class with my twin sister. How is she doing?
That's correct. Yes, Amy.
She's
Yeah.
doing
How is
well.
she doing?
She's doing well. Thank you. She's doing well.
Have you seen any of her sessions? I know she's very much into symbolic thinking. And so I told her that with remote viewing, when you're describing something on a physical level, the symbols can get in your way because then you're not sure, are you describing the symbols or are you describing what's really there? So she has such a strong background in symbology. I wasn't sure how she'd do with her sessions.
Oh,
No,
she's doing great.
she's
But
doing
you know,
great.
we're dealing with all our own issues
Right.
because you know
AOLing.
we find we can
Oh,
just think it's one thing and find that we've only really touched upon some aspect of it. And that's why I use that word aspect, because we haven't hit the target directly, but we'll get something that just is crazy spot on, but is not the whole target. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting, and that is why we both had that question for you about the subconscious. Really,
right.
how does that work and play into things? And what is the grid that really connects everything, that gives us these kind of psychic abilities? How could anybody possibly know what is a picture that somebody is just a monitor is given a name to
Right.
a number, and they say, here's the number, and you get some big aspect of it.
Dell just messaged me. I'm sorry. Dell just messaged me and they're waiting for their show to start.
Okay. All right.
I just wanted to let you know that.
Yeah, we always started a little late, but
that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
It's 10:30,
So I guess that means
I guess we have to move on. Well, we'd like to thank you for being on. Your books are available on Amazon.com, of course. And again, I just give you a plug. I gave my daughter your first book, You Are Psychic, for Christmas this year. And I think she's out there listening, and she's pretty jazzed about it. I do recommend people do look for that. And we really appreciate you coming on, Deborah.
Yes, thank you again.
Yeah, it's so fun talking to you guys. And I'm just so thrilled to hear that you're practicing your remote viewing. And I assure you, if you keep practicing, you'll work out a lot of the AOL, the analytic overlay issues like that. It'll hit you big time when you first get started. But after a while, it just all settles down. And when you're doing your session, just don't be ever thinking, what is this? Like, don't ever be thinking, I want to understand what this is. Instead, just say, I want to just observe, record, and report. And as soon as you let go of wanting to know what it is, your mind stops generating such massive analytic overlays. So
thank you so much for that advice.
We definitely get lost in them, but we are working on it, and we appreciate it. And thank you so much for those predictions for 2021. And
yes, thank you.
I know you have a new book coming out too. Do you want to tell us real quick what the name of that is?
Well, it's going to be on associative remote viewing for sports betting, financial trading, election predictions, and the lotto. So we're working out the name right now, but it'll be something along those lines, and that'll be out later in the spring. And then I've put my 3 books also into a trilogy called The Complete Clairvoyant, and that's out right now on Kindle. So yeah.
Awesome.
I also teach classes in clairvoyance and remote viewing as well. And if anyone's interested, they can check out my website at Debra Katz, DebraKatz.com.
Excellent. Thank you, Deborah. We really appreciate it. Just let our listeners know we're going to be taking a little hiatus for the next couple of weeks, building out a studio and getting our technology a little bit better together so we're less reliant on Skype and the issues that seem to come with it. But you stay tuned on Tuesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can still see Bigfoot and the Bunny. There will be shows repeated, and we'll be back. So
thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Oh, bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thanks again.